Welcome to episode 463 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing Tim Sutton, who just did a rock and roll drama called Taurus, starring Colson Baker, aka Machine Gun Kelly. We talk about how that movie came together for him, as well as his career and how he got his start making these moody dramas. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mentioned in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 463. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline and query letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So just a quick few words about what I've been working on. I've been talking about this NFT project with the Rideshare Killer. We are finally to the point where we are launching it. Next week, as the final episode of the year, I'm going to do a fuller explanation about what we've done with this NFT project. But if you want to get a little preview, check out our website. That is up and ready to go. And it's just www.theridesharekiller.com/NFTs. And that's NFTs plural. So it's Nancy, Frank, Tom, S. theridesharekiller.com/NFTs. It definitely took more time than I would have wanted, but hopefully it's a good marketing hook to bring some more eyeballs to the Rideshare Killer. Anyways, check out the website if you're interested. As I said, next week I'll have a much fuller explanation about what we've done and how we're going to go about pushing this out. But the website is ready to go, so you can check that out, theridesharekiller.com/NFTs. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I am interviewing writer-director Tim Sutton. Here is the interview. Welcome, Tim, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
Well, I grew up in upstate New York, but I've been a New Yorker, a Brooklynite for over 25 years. So I kind of consider New York my home. Okay. And originally I wanted to be a musicologist, actually. I was really into jazz and American roots music. And I kind of wanted to be like Alan Lomax and go around the world and record people out in the field and record music and write about music. And in grad school, I took an ethnographic film class and got a camera in my hand, and it was all of a sudden like the light just shined on me, and I just knew that that was my medium. After grad school, I came to New York and I became a production assistant and worked my way through the industry, got to learn filmmaking from the ground up, and started making short films on my own and eventually music videos. And then eventually I just I had to make a feature film and went from there. But it really came from a love of at first a love of music and the stories of music and musicians.
Gotcha.
And then that turned into a love of filmmaking through the storytelling.
Gotcha. I just quickly, can you offer any advice to people that are getting out of college that need to get that first production assistant job? How did you get your job? And do you have any tips for young people that are looking to just get that entry-level job in the business?
Yeah, I mean, it's, listen, my mom always said network. And I was always like, oh, I don't want to network. It's not my style. But like, I got my first job through a family friend, who happened to be a production manager on a commercial. So I do think you have to use all the resources that you have at your access. Other than that, there's a lot of productions in New York and a lot of production companies in New York. I'm just thinking from New York's perspective, where you can get on a feature film pretty easily as a PA, as long as you have a driver's license. So it's about finding the production companies. I'm sure you can do it through the internet, but it's about kind of going out there and saying, I'll do anything. Just get me on set. Let me drive. Let me work from the bottom up. And then when you're there, don't just be the PA, be the best PA in the world, like really show that you can take on more responsibility. And maybe by the end of that first production, you're actually a camera PA. And then you're working with the camera department. Well, and then maybe you're interested in camera after that. So it's a way, once you get in there, if you perform hard, if you perform strong, there's a lot of opportunity right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Very sound advice. I'm curious now that you've had a number of years as a writer director in the business. Why are you still in New York City? Do you feel like that's a good place to be? Is there ever been a draw to move to Los Angeles? And I get this question all the time. Just, what do you recommend, especially in the day and age of Zoom and being able to talk to people? Just as we're talking, I'm in LA, you're in New York. Just what is your kind of current position or point of view on that? Should people move to Hollywood? Do you ever feel like you're going to move here?
Well, I love LA, and I probably, in a way should have moved there a little earlier, but I don't think it's necessary there. Other than Taurus, it's like, I haven't shot a movie in LA. It's not like there's any more work going on in LA than there is in Atlanta or in Toronto or in Vancouver or in New York. I think what's important is to live somewhere where you feel comfortable and you can be creative. So New York is a very expensive city. I don't think if I were 25 years old, I don't think I'd move here right now. I think I'd move to a town like Nashville or Memphis or New Orleans or something where it's very fertile creatively, but you can afford to live. So my filmmaker friends in Memphis, they all, they don't have to have 3 jobs or work in a cafe most of the time. They can just be filmmakers because the cost of living is not so expensive. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's really about where can you do your work? Because you can get a camera and some smart people around you as actors and as crew anywhere to get started. To get larger productions and move on in the business, I think, you're going to have a relationship with LA at some point, which is great. But do you have to live there? No, you just need to live somewhere where you can be creative.
Yeah. Sound advice for sure. So let's just talk quickly about Pavilion, your first feature film that you wrote and directed. Quickly, how did you get that film produced? What was sort of the mechanics of taking that from script to screen?
Sure. Well, first of all, it was drive. Like, I had gotten to a point where it was make a feature film or you might never make one. And I really wanted to at least make one. I had been working at Getty Images in the film department at Getty Images, and so I was working with small crews and real people instead of actors, and so I just had a thought of making a movie about teenage lifestyle, and I wrote a short story, and I got my cinematographer of choice at the time, Chris Dapkins, and we went upstate and shot a little short piece of it. And, got to know the kids and got to know the kind of story that I think I could tell with them and how much money it was going to take. And then I raised $40,000 from a couple of friends who were in finance. And also I financed it myself. And that was the first film I made. Mm-hmm. I made it in 10 days, shot it in 10 days. And it was a very loose kind of liquid production, which is what I wanted, kind of in the Gus Van Sant, less plot, more atmosphere kind of style. Mm-hmm. And I got lucky, and when I cut it together with my editor Seth Bomsey, who's mainly a documentary editor, it ended up opening up South by Southwest that year. So I got lucky, but I also made something that was unique to me because I didn't want to try and make something. I didn't want to try and make a $40,000 film that was actually trying to be a $5 million film. I just wanted to know what I could make in the boundaries that I had. And I think that's stuck with me even now that I have bigger budgets. I know, listen, $5 million budget is not a $30 million budget. You have to know what you can make within your boundaries and make it the best you can.
Mm-hmm. How did that just affect the trajectory of your career? You made Pavilion, open South by Southwest. Did you get an agent? Was there enough, people in the business at South by Southwest seeing the movie? Did you get an agent? Did you get a manager? Did it get you your next project, your first paid gig?
it helped me get my next film, but I didn't get it was still pretty marginal, kind of atmospheric movie, but it did get me recognized in terms of critical acclaim. It was a critics pick for the New York Times. It won a festival in Italy where I met the head of the Venice Film Festival, who ended up the Venice Biennale ended up financing my second film, Memphis. So it got me on the road to thinking, I'm a filmmaker. I'm going to make another feature film. I'm doubling down. But it also got me critical success more than anything else. And critical success really helped build my reputation.
Yeah, for sure. So let's dig into your latest film, Taurus, starring Colson Baker, AKA Machine Gun Kelly, and Megan Fox. Maybe to start out, you can give us a pitch or a log line. What is this film all about?
Well, it's about the tragic downfall of a rising musician. Someone who's got infinite talent, but is plagued by vice and doubt and insecurity, and it's the kind of the dark underbelly of fame and fortune.
Mm-hmm. And where did this idea come from? What was sort of the genesis of it?
Well, I mean, I've always been fascinated by music and musicians' lives. As I said, I was thought I might be a musicologist to start out, but these musicians who aren't made for the world, like Thelonious Monk or Amy Winehouse, these great talents who should be living long, successful lives of artistry, but are broken down by fame in some way. And I was 25 when Kurt Cobain died, 24 when Kurt Cobain died, and that left a void that has never really been filled. And I think also like the 27 Club is a real thing. Like these people, these young artists dying before they can really fulfill their promise. So I wanted to make a movie in my language, in my kind of visual cinematic language about this subject. And I wanted to do it with a real musician. And so, I was lucky because Colson, Machine Gun Kelly, is a fantastic musician and a world famous musician, but he's also a really fine actor. And I think people are just starting to realize that part of it.
Gotcha. So let's dig into your writing process a little bit. Just maybe you can kind of give us an overview of it. How do you work? Do you have a home office? Do you go to Starbucks with ambient noise? Do you work in the morning? Do you work at night? What does your writing schedule look like when you're trying to get something done?
Sure. I start with the ideas in my head, for a long time. And then when I finally can do it, I write it down in an outline. I handwrite an outline that's usually about 3 or 4 pages. And then once I have the outline, I start writing the script. I write in the mornings. I write every weekday in the mornings for at least a couple hours. And then I edit in the afternoons or the evenings. I edit what I just wrote. So I kind of keep going back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. So when I come to the end of the first draft, it's actually pretty polished. It usually takes me about 3 or 4 weeks to get that first draft done.
Gotcha. And then what does your development process look like? 3 or 4 weeks, you got a first draft that you're pretty happy with. Do you have some other writer friends? Do you have an agent, a manager you send it? How do you get notes? How do you develop a piece of work?
Sure. I have friends that kind of trusted readers who are in the business, a couple of producer friends of mine that I usually get quick reads from. Mm-hmm. I do have a manager who I get a quick read from as well. And, I'm usually I'm not writing necessarily with someone in mind, but I'm usually pretty quick to get that get it in the hand of an actor as well. Mm. And I'll synthesize all those notes, but, some notes I'll agree with and some notes I won't. But I usually I try and write the next draft when I'm getting closer to actually like, okay, we're going to send this to these financiers or this and that. So I'll have that is the second draft is usually what goes out to the financiers, possible financiers and production companies. Then I won't do another draft until shooting. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to take all these notes from a financier and then have them not finance the movie. So it's important to kind of like stay true to your script at that point, get people involved. And then once you synthesize all the notes from actors, from producers, from the financiers, then when you're greenlit, I write the shooting script, and it's usually that's the final draft.
Gotcha. And I'm curious, because this is something that all screenwriters run into where, there's a production company or a financier that says, oh, we want these notes, but they're not really willing to pay for the rewrites. And you're not really guaranteed of getting a green light if you make those notes.
Right.
How do you have those conversations with these financiers? I said, well, wait a minute, I'll make those notes, but only if you agree to finance it. How do you push back a little bit? Because oftentimes, at least to me, it's always felt like you're sort of expected to make these changes, and
Right.
pushing back sort of, you get a little snarky, like don't be difficult type of an attitude.
Right. I mean, I think, financiers are they're going to want to make your movie if they want to make your movie, like if you push back, that's the business. But I mean, it's pretty clear, like if there's some easy notes that I know will get them to go forward, really go forward, I'll give them that. But mostly I'll just say, okay, these notes sound really good. And then I'll have my manager and the producers go to work and say, he'll make the changes when you put in the financing. Because it's like, it's ridiculous in ways for them to ask for all these things when there's no guarantee they're going to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. If they give good notes that I find interesting and I want to engage with, I will. But typically it's just like, I'll be very receptive of those notes and then wait for them to get the financing, and then I'll incorporate the notes.
Gotcha. So you mentioned Gus Van Sant, and that your films are often sort of about mood and tone, and as opposed to a really structured story. Mm-hmm. Talk about that a little bit. How do you approach screenplay structure with a film like this? There's obviously the Sid Field, Blake Snyder, which have very sort of delineated templates of where things should happen. But just what's your approach? Maybe you can kind of give us some insight of your approach to screenplay structure.
Well, sure. I mean, I would say lately, Taurus doesn't have 3 acts, but it is a descent. You know what I mean? So there's a very clear descent. But, things don't have to happen on page 30, whereas in a specific 3-act structure, you have to have things happening at a certain point in time. Mm-hmm. What I try and do is just build a world. And I build a world through description, through style, and through dialogue. And as long as those things are coming through, the reader's engaged. And if the reader's engaged, they're engaged. And that's fantastic. It doesn't have to go, for me, it doesn't have to go, they don't have to be at a certain place in the story and be like, oh, now I know exactly what's going to happen. I love scripts like that, and I love movies like that. It's just not my style when I sit down to write. And what's more important is to just build a world that immerses the reader.
Yeah. Sound advice for sure. Okay. So once you had a draft of this script that you liked, what were those next steps to actually raising financing and getting this thing produced? Did you bring on some actors first to help get financing, or did you guys go out and try and get financing and then bring on actors? But maybe you can just walk us through some of that process.
Sure. For Taurus, I gave the script to Jib Polhemus, who's the producer, who has produced the film that I had made before with Colson, and we went to Colson right away. And it was important to get Colson involved in it. And he said yes right away. So he attached right away. So within, within writing it, I think I wrote it in a few weeks, handed it to them. We had our main actor, we had a producer, and we started going out. We got 10 no's, and then we got a yes from Reveal It Films because they were really interested in the story. The kind of a different take on A Star Is Born, and they really thought Colson had a lot of potential. So within 3 weeks after taking it out, we had a promise of a budget. So it was a very quick process. But then the rest of the cast came in after it. This was a movie that it was going to live or die with Colson. We were either going to do it for $1 million or $5 million, whatever we could do. We weren't going to bring in other people of value necessarily, because we knew we had to. The whole film just was on his shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
gotcha. And then it gave us the freedom to cast who we wanted. Like Maddie Hassan, she taped along with probably 50 other actors. Some were much more well known. Probably would have given us a little bit more cachet in that world. But Maddie's just a better actor and just blew us away and is great in the role. So it not being dependent on needing value for the actors, we were able to get, valuable actors,
Yeah, for sure. So I just like to wrap up these interviews by asking the guests if there's anything they've seen recently that they thought was really great. HBO, Hulu, Netflix. Is there anything that you've seen recently that you could recommend to a screenwriting audience?
Yeah, Neon's Triangle of Sadness. Talk about a well structured script.
And then you broke up a little bit. What was the name of it again?
Triangle of Sadness.
Okay, perfect.
It won the Cannes Film Festival last year. It's Neon, so it's in theaters right now. And it is, you want to talk about a well structured script? It's brilliant. It's perfectly structured. It's hilarious. Woody Harrelson's in it. It's as hilarious as it is smart. And very rarely is there a smart, funny movie these days.
Yeah, for sure. So sounds like a great recommendation. I'll have to check that out. How can people see Taurus? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like for it?
Yeah, it's going to be in theaters and on demand November 18th, next week.
November 18th. And what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything you're comfortable sharing?
I'm on Instagram as Van Riper Archives is my handle. VANRIPER Archives. And I'm on it all the time so people can get in touch.
Okay, perfect. Well, Tim, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me. Good luck with this film and good luck with all your future films as well.
Thanks, Ashley. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
SYS's From Concept to Completion screenwriting course is now available. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It will take you through every part of writing a screenplay, coming up with a concept, outlining, writing the opening pages, the first act, second act, third act, and then rewriting. And then there's even a module at the end on marketing your screenplay once it's polished and ready to be sent out. We're offering this course in 2 different versions. The first version, you get the course, plus you get 3 analyses from an SYS reader. You'll get 1 analysis on your outline, and then you'll get 2 analyses on your first draft of your screenplay. This is just our introductory price. You're getting 3 full analyses, which is actually the same price as our 3-pack analysis bundle. So you're essentially getting the course for free when you buy the 3 analyses that come with it. And to be clear, you're getting our full analysis with this package. The other version doesn't have the analysis, so you'll have to find some friends or colleagues who will do the feedback portion of the course with you. I'm letting SYS Select members do this version of the course for free. So if you're a member of SYS Select, you already have access to it. You also might consider that as an option. If you join SYS Select, you will get the course as part of that membership too. A big piece of this course is accountability. Once you start the course, you'll get an email every Sunday with that week's assignment. And if you don't complete it, we'll follow up with another reminder the next week. It's easy to pause the course if you need to take some time off, but as long as you're enrolled, you'll continue to get reminders for each section until it's completed. The objective of the course is to get you through it in 6 months so that you have a completed, polished screenplay ready to be sent out. So if you have an idea for a screenplay and you're having a hard time getting it done, this course might be exactly what you need. If this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It's all one word, all lowercase. I will, of course, link to the course in the show notes, and I will put a link to the course on the homepage up in the right-hand sidebar. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be giving my fuller explanation of our NFT project that goes along with the Rideshare Killer. Again, if you want to get a little preview, just check out the website, www.theridesharekiller.com/NFTs. Anyways, keep an eye out for that episode next week. That's our show. Thank you for listening.